Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com, CardHoarder.com, Alter Sleeves, as well as Twitch subscribers and Patreon supporters just like you. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hello from Rome.
Hello from Rome, Ruben Bressler.
I was going to say, I should know how to say hello in Italian. How do I say it? I don't know. Yeah, you just do this with your hand?
Wow. Okay, cool. Well,
perfect. I did it.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Oh my lord, we have botched
Ciao,
it.
Bella.
If you missed our pre-show, subscribers to this channel get access to our NSFW version early, as well as our Patreon supporters, which we appreciate. And we kick it off with our first pick in our giveaway. Get your chance at $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com by typing !raffle in the chat. But subscribe first to get 2 chances to win, and support your favorite streamer with your suggestions at the end of the show to see who we raid this evening. Not really tonight, I would argue. That is thanks to our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. Now, there are lots of stuff that we can go over quickly, but we also quickly wanted to note that Nerd Girl is traveling around the world, and that's why we're here at 6 o'clock Eastern. But you're having fun.
Yeah.
I am.
Thank you so much for taking some time away from your fabulous hotel digs to join us.
And thank you guys for, being accommodating with the schedule. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's literally the middle of the night over there. So that means we get to our first pick. Our first pick this week is just Unfinity everything. Unfinity started its previews this week, and we didn't even get to cover or talk too much about the 40k stuff because we're so full of Unfinity craziness. Not only do we have tickets and we have stickers, we now have attractions that have visits and prizes. And all sorts of crazy stuff. We even have a new psychographic with Vorthos, Steward of Myth, as one of the mythics of the set. So now even the Vorthos people can have something cool to, represent them.
Yeah, I love everything that I've seen out of Unfinity so far. I think that attractions are going to take me a minute to figure out in much the same way that contraptions did. You've got a junk pile instead of a scrap pile or whatever.
Scrapyard.
When they get destroyed. Yeah, exactly. They'll take me a minute to get used to, but just like everything with Magic, how much weirder is this than Sagas? Not that much weirder. And they both trigger at the beginning of the pre-combat main phase. So I'm excited to give it a shot.
I love unsets. I can't wait to see how a lot of these new mechanics play out. Yeah. And also, this will be the first time where I know these cards are a lot more playable. A lot of them, are legally allowed to be played in other formats, but also we have some really dope shocks here. So I feel like this one's going to get opened a lot more than the typical ones.
Yeah, one of the great things about the unsets is that, good, bad, or ugly, if there is an extended art land in every single pack, and those lands are worth, $2-ish a piece, well, there you go. That's $72 worth of stuff before you get anything else. And so now that these are kind of black border, I think they were 44% of the set is black bordered or something like that. The idea that you can get, some awesome lands on top of your maybe fun, cool, some cards that'll go in commander decks, maybe some cards that can go all the way back to legacy. I think that's great. The Galaxy foil being what most have been noting is like a Pokemon treatment that they've used before, but that's okay. Foil is as foil does.
Sure. Not
a big deal. But the Galaxy foil shocklands, if I heard that correct.
Yeah.
The Galaxy foil shocklands are going to be very, very rare. 1 in 20 box toppers, if I heard that correctly.
So compare that to a Zendikar Expedition for me. How rare were the Zendikar Expedition shocks as compared to a Galaxy foil shock?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it in those terms. I should put it that way. If I recall, the expeditions were about 1 per case. So that's 1 every 6 boxes, right? And this is 1 per every 20 boxes. So think of it as over 3 times rarer. So
3 times as rare, and they're also not a standard legal set, so there's going to be less boxes.
There you go. So
So I would not be surprised to see, let's see here. I'm going to say that a regular shock from Unfinity, the most common shock from Unfinity, is probably going to be 3 times as expensive as a regular shock from another standard legal set. So, and then on top of that, you want a foil, that's another 3x. And then on top of that, you want the Galaxy foil, that's another 3x. That's going to be a $300 Magic card. That's pretty cool.
It would
It depends. Like,
right.
the secret layers are not necessarily 3x the regular.
That's
right.
true.
And also, the collector packs have kind of ruined a lot of the foil value in the ways that those have, increased foils out there.
Sure.
So, yeah, but they're going to be very rare, and they're very cool. And, this is the... I think it's a very smart decision of that you want to shore it up a little bit. Like, just an unset, while cool and neat and we like it, isn't always going to just sell itself. And having this as sort of a hedged bet of, well, we got both the extended art lands and we've got shock lands in there and we've got a unique foiling process so we can help sell these collector packs, which is another giant question mark. Can the funny set sell the $20+ packs? That's a huge question mark, and hasn't been spoken of a lot, I think, in that, what this product, the big leap on this product is collector packs, not even the stickers, in my opinion. I think it's the collector packs.
Yeah, that's going to be the big variable here. Something like, what did you say, 40% of the set is black border legal?
Something like that.
So if anything is remotely playable in any of the Eternal formats, be that Legacy, Pauper, Vintage, whatever, that may be able to shift the needle as well. And I don't know that you want it to. I don't know that you want these cards to be super playable in those super constructed formats. Obviously, Commander's a different story entirely.
Right.
I am excited that, the Most Dangerous Gamer and friends are going to be playable in Commander. I think that's super cool. But as it pertains to the highest echelons with prize pools and things like that, that remains to be seen.
Well, we have a few different mechanics for the set, some that we knew and we talked about already. The stickers that were there. I did note that there is a sticker sheet that has the power and toughness of 6/9 and 4/2. I'm just saying, I see you. I saw what you're doing there. Cool. So the stickers were neat. The fact that all the clowns were robots, I think, was actually very smart. That you can make them silly because they're just robots and not scary and freaky. The attractions, I think, are super neat. And, opening attractions might be... I bet they're way more fun than people keep sort of gnashing their teeth about. They're just like, roll it down.
Can we go back just a quick second?
Yeah.
How does making clowns robots make them less creepy?
Well, because they're mechanical, right? Ultimately, they're machines. They're not like, horror.
That makes it worse.
I mean, it depends on how you illustrate it. Sure.
I did heavily lean into the creepiness of animatronics in Degens and Dragons when I was describing the clown robots personally, because I think that, and there's also like Poppy's Playhouse is a pretty popular game that sort of leans into that. I think that leaning away from just clowns is an American-centric view of things. We have we have other scary clowns from outer space.
Killer clowns from outer space.
Killer clowns from outer space, which is a very American-centric thing, and it's also like a relatively recent advent in culture. I don't want to get into the whole clowns and culture thing, but
it's fun.
It is I don't mind it, and I also think that it's less anachronistic to have an explanation of why clowns exist in space, as opposed to just like, this is a career you can choose. You can be a clown in space. Like, I don't think there's a ton of job openings.
All right, so I think the bigger issue is that this is really one of the first times beyond a sideboard in which you're bringing an extra deck along with you. Like, if you go to a constructed event at Legacy Constructed, you could break out the sticker deck and the attractions deck legitimately just to mess with your opponent. Maybe use them, maybe you don't, but
I love that. I'm definitely going to bring stickers and attractions to this is like putting the fairy token in front of your Kithkin deck. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. That's a very smart idea.
You got to get that extra 1% edge. But either way, so I was enjoying that. I think that's cool. I think the fact that you have like hats is a thing, and if someone's wearing a hat and you can put a hat sticker, and like if it seems like a lot of the sticker sheets now have hats, I've noticed, stuff like that.
Yeah, hats matter.
Words matter, which is nice. Yeah. Freaking Comet, the stellar pup, like best boy in the multiverse.
Yeah,
we have a dog planeswalker. Isn't that great?
I love the dog.
And someone did the math on if you built the Comet deck for Legacy and you had Barbarian class, Pixie Guide, and the Legend that can also let you reroll. It doesn't always do lethal, but it's there pretty regularly if you have 3 rerollers.
Wow.
And even 2 is just like, you get a bunch of squirrel tokens, you get a bunch of damage. Like, it's not terrible.
Yeah, Comet Stellar Pup, and I mean the collector version is just awesome. That whole art style, very flat, cartoony.
I love the Jetsons kind of Tomorrowland art style that they did. The Most Dangerous Gamer has my favorite of that art style, but it's very like it's like the art for old Stasis almost.
Yeah.
Where it's it's like a shapes. 1960s. Yeah. The 1960s futurism is great, and Space Jace, it looks excellent. Devil Knievel is another one that I just love the alternate version of. Yeah, it's spectacular.
So this is not the first time we've had this issue before with Urza's Hot Tub or whatever, but again, putting websites on Magic cards just freaks me out. I'm like, websites change, right? The web changes. 20 years ago, Facebook didn't exist or whatever, but like, there's putting that there so that website, that URL now has to be bought and paid for until the end of time or whatever. Like, it seems weird.
Man. I'm not upset. I'm not terribly upset about that.
I'm not pissed off or nothing. I'm just like, is that a good idea? Is that a long-term strategy? Like, for Magic cards 100 years from now, that website still won't exist?
If Magic is still good and popular, I think it will not be a problem. And if it's not, and they then cannot afford to continue to maintenance that website, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah,
it'll be on Wikipedia forever.
Right. In fun URL news, the Twins, the Minnesota Twins, finally got twins.com for the first time ever.
Nice.
This month, because the pair of twins that owned and were squatting on that URL since 1995 let it lapse, and the Twins finally picked it up.
Nice.
They let it lapse. I mean, you see stuff like that all the time. Tom Martell still owns BrianKibler.com, and just like won't give it up. He offered to give it to him as a gift one year
for his wedding, I think.
Yeah, something along those lines, and that was pretty funny. But yeah, he has it like redirecting to like silly stuff sometimes. Sometimes it redirects to like TomMartell.com, which is really funny. So people get to mess with people that way.
Yep. Yeah, BrianKibler.com redirects to TomMartell.com, which currently is an error 404.
Nice. Brian Kibler, as it were.
Yes.
So let's move on here to Gather the Townsfolk. I did want to touch a little bit about Warhammer 40K. I think it is an absolute home run. Let's put it this way. I have yet to see any 40K fan who has literally any problem with the product. I mean, whatsoever. Like, they got this wrong. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't work for the so-and-so. This character would never do such and such, or this character would never have that ability. Like, all of it's fired on every cylinder. And Lord knows Pleasant Kenobi would lose his absolute mind if they had gotten it wrong. And he got a whole deck to preview, and that was awesome.
I got a couple of comments because I posted a tweet about it, how I was excited. And the only negative thing I got was that they didn't pick the most popular like armies to do, and they were like, oh, my army's not in this, who wants Tyranids anyway? And I was like, wait a minute, I have a Tyranid army, man. Right. Like, what the heck? So like it seemed like nobody was going to be happy thing, and I think people underestimate the Tyranid fans.
I think just Warhammer fans in general, like that thing's been selling like crazy.
I mean, I was a little surprised that they didn't do orcs, that they didn't do elves, like the high elves or the dark
Those
elves.
are
I forget
those
which
are
one.
fantasy though. This is 40K.
Oh, I see. All
Yeah,
right.
so
Well, in that case, never mind.
Get it right.
there
dude.
now there are like space orc type things, so they could have done some more fantasy-esque stuff, but for the most part, yeah, it's mostly it's right now it's only 40K. I hope this is a hit. I hope they do fantasy fantasy Warhammer, but that's a lot like just normal magic characters, right? Like high elves
Sure.
is just a magic thing.
Right.
And the Tyranids thing was is unique as like a creature type, and there was a question of what do you want to do if you try to reprint them in the universe? Well, they would just pick a different creature type that would be unique to itself. Having a Blood Moon-esque creature that has a really cool, unique ability, the one that turns off the lands and gives them
Yeah, that was cool.
That card is rad, and I want to see that in like real quote unquote in universe Magic.
I want squigs in magic. Or give me squigs or give me death.
What is squigs?
Squigs, look them up. They're super cute. They're like little round monsters with legs. The goblins ride on them. They're
oh my gosh, what
adorable.
A baby.
What they're like little savages.
Yeah, these look like abyssal chickens from D&D.
Abyssal chickens.
Abyssal chicken. Go look up abyssal chicken. You'll love them.
I can't.
But squigs are also excellent. This is very good.
So I think I am the Warhammer nut on the podcast. I have a couple of armies, Tyranids, and then I've got mostly fantasy, but the Tyranids are the only 40K, and then I've got high elves, some lizardmen, and I have a couple of squigs and stuff, which I like that are just kind of like hanging around. So yeah, I got some cool things.
So are you familiar enough with the Warhammer 40K decks to say to you, what is your favorite of the cards, or what is the best translation of the cards?
So not yet, because unfortunately they didn't really start doing any of the like major spoilers until after I left.
Got it.
So I have been a little out of it for the last bit, but now that they are mostly officially spoiled, I'll go ahead and start reading into them. But yeah, I wasn't keeping up with them as they came out. But I think the full deck just got spoiled like
last
2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think they were all spoiled at the end of last week. But I think.
But you were traveling, like I get it.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I still love the blood for the blood god.
Yeah, that was like the first one that they showed, and they also did. Awesome. They did classic stuff that if you are not familiar with Warhammer, but are like nerd adjacent, like on this podcast, they did the Horus Heresy. They did the first Tyrannic War. Mm-hmm. They did something like, and you will know us by our something. I forget what the name of that card was. Mm-hmm. Let the Galaxy Burn, like the classic quotes from the game. They did, and there are a couple of cards in this set that are these are not legacy playable, right? Like we can't play these in legacy.
I think so. They are eternal playable like all other commander
cards.
They? I think so.
Triumph of St. Catherine is super legacy playable. That's a 5/5 for 5 with lifelink that has Miracle of 2 mana. And when it dies, you exile the top 6 cards of your library face down and shuffle this card back into them. That with Brainstorm and Fetch Lands and Ponder and all of the top of your library manipulation, this is a 5/5 lifelink on turn 2 a lot of the time. So I think that one's super legacy playable. There's a bunch of really good cards in this set. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I think they really pushed hard, and like I was saying, first time Wizards does something, no matter what it is, they almost always go just ham, just absolute wild. They don't want it to fail. They want it to be great. You want this to be, you want the numbers from this release to be impressive. So you can go to future licensees and say, hey, look what we did with Warhammer. We made cool, awesome cards that people loved on both sides of the fandom, and so on and so forth. But anyway, I think that's great. And like I noted on Twitter, this is one of the biggest wins that Wizards has gotten in a very long time. And that if there were complaints that they were very small, hard to find. Let's put it that way. They were hard to find.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. So on September 19th, a few days ago, Wizards banned 4 cards I had no idea what they did. I absolutely, gun to my head, would not have gotten anything about any of these cards right, I think. because 4 cards using the initiative mechanic from Battle for
Right.
Baldur's Gate were added to the client, which is great, and then immediately banned thereafter because they're too powerful in Pauper. These are generally 4 mana creatures, and one's a 5 mana creature because it can be, wait for it,
Yeah.
double Dark Ritualed in Pauper, because you
Sure.
can still play Dark Ritual in Pauper.
Sure.
And because people were getting these out on turn 2 with Lotus Petals and Dark Rituals, that was causing the problem. So instead of banning the fast mana, they banned the 4 mana dorks and the 5 mana dork. And I think that is a gigantic mistake. It doesn't make any sense to me, in that the fast mana caused the creatures out so early that the initiative became a problem. If you remove the fast mana, it won't be a problem anymore. Like, you can literally unban all 4 of these if you ban Dark Ritual. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It's just people like playing with Dark Ritual. Like, this is the brainstorm problem still. Like, it's just a different format, right? We have a bunch of stuff like this where it's the initiative or it's adventure or it's the monarch, and if you and they're not going to stop making those, right?
Right.
We just got attractions. That's another thing that you just do during your turn. Like, when this comes into play, a new thing is going to happen every turn for the rest of the game. And so you have like the Thorn of the Black Rose, and you've got all those other monarch cards, and then you've got these guys as well. And I'm not horrendously broken up about the fact that these are getting banned. You know, I think that there's still a 5 mana green initiative guy. Like, the
Yeah.
initiative deck is still a thing in Pauper. It's just that these ones were the easiest to sneak out on turn 2. So,
And I don't know. It seems super weird. Just feels like, and I know in Legacy they've done everything but ban Brainstorm, and I kind of get that. But I also would note that, in Pauper, for example, I played Pauper for years, and over the years, and a lot of my past decks, very few, if any of them, had like Dark Ritual in them. I never felt it was like this untouchable thing in the format, and it just felt very banning Vengevine instead of banning Survival of the Fittest, because you just gotta have survival in the format. And I'm just like, do you? Because it's gonna get broken every time you have some weird graveyard thing going on. But yeah, that's.
I don't know that it's
B&R
that it's that bad, but you know, I think that I also don't know enough about Pauper. I don't pay enough attention to Pauper as it pertains to all of the Magic formats to form an opinion that I think is going to be better argued than what the Pauper committee comes up with. So if they say that these need to go, I'm on board.
Same. Yeah. I think it's really interesting when people who, I don't know, I feel like the most vocal people about stuff don't tend to know enough about it, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what we're here to do, is make noise with our mouths.
That's true. Listen, we do have a show where we're supposed to talk about it. So I'm glad that we talked about it. However,
Right. And
I will
Well,
also...
this is a news show. So that doesn't mean we give the news, these things are banned, but we don't necessarily have to have this is 100% the correct decision or this is 100% the worst decision.
Right.
This is what happened. I don't think I know any better than the Pauper committee, because Pauper's hard. Like,
And I'm not saying that I know better than them either. For me, I felt like it didn't make any sense to me, in that I've seen fast mana, and we've seen fast mana break things over and over. Fast mana breaks things. And I'm like, it's the fast mana, right? Like, it's weird. It's weird. Either way, I understand there's more arguments to be made.
I mean, it took them a while to get Mox Opal out of formats, so...
also, they could just want to keep it just because you were saying, it's a fan favorite card. So
Right.
people enjoy playing with it. They'd rather get rid of the bomb than the enabler, to keep the masses that enjoy the format happy. And it's sort of like, faithless looting died for Hogak sins. Like,
It's true. They really did. So, yeah, I mean, and I think at times, there might be too many cards banned. I think is an argument you could make for a lot of formats, is that they've gone a little too far. For example, like, why is Library of Alexandria restricted in Vintage? Like, no real good reason, I think. But whatever. Either way, let's move on here to Desperate Ravings, because this is where we get into the meat and potatoes of the silliness of the week. Magic 30. A little bit torn, because Cool Stuff's doing a whole bunch of stuff with Magic 30, and that's great. We want it to be a good show and everybody having a good time. However, there have been some questions around a few things. One of them being on-demand events. And as of right now, feel free to correct me, please do. There are no on-demand events at Magic 30. Now, that's not the end of the world, but it also is kind of weird and uniquely weird for a Magic event to have none of them. Also note there are a ton of events that they've announced and allowed for signups, and most of those are sold out. So, Ruben, as someone who is going there, and Nerdgirl, who's someone, you guys will not necessarily have on-demand events, and what does that mean to you?
Well, thankfully, I booked my stuff in advance. So the day I bought my ticket, which was 30 minutes after it started, and those tickets were already sold out. I had to get them through a friend. I was able to get a ticket and book my I did one event Friday, because then my pass comes with another event in the evening, and then I booked 2 events Saturday and then 1 event on Sunday, because the hall closes kind of early. So I was able to book like the 4 things, and so I'll have something to do and friends to hang out with in between. But for the people who didn't pre-register, there's nothing left. So good luck. I mean, I'm sure it's probably infinite into like the Dominaria pre-release stuff, or not. It's just Dominaria seals. Sure. Those are probably pretty close to infinite. So if you want to just do 4 of those all weekend, you probably can. But with the exception of that, I don't think people are going to be able to do much. And there's no refunds. You can't even change tickets. Like if I'm like, yeah, I would rather hang out with my friends and give you my cool event ticket, you can't even do that. There's literally nothing.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for me because I can't attend on Sunday. I'm flying back early Sunday morning from Vegas. I don't know how much this will affect me. I haven't looked deeply enough into this because I wasn't planning on doing a ton of extra paid events anyway. I was going primarily for the Commander stuff, and that's what I was planning on doing, was the social, unplanned events. The fact that it's not even an option is upsetting. And it seems like it's a situation where I don't think that this was even on purpose so much as they just feel very disorganized. They feel like they're trying to do something big, something expansive, but they don't have the tools in place. They don't have the people in place to pull it off. And so we end up with this. We end up with the confusion over how many tickets are available. We end up with, I'm sure we'll talk about more of the confusion and more of the consternation about Magic 30. But it is just a lot of confusion, a lot of concern, and not enough options over and over and over again.
Now, we don't know for sure. We just couldn't find any on the website, and then someone tweeted about it and they responded with, "We cannot comment at the moment." So maybe that doesn't mean that there aren't any. It means that they don't know what they are yet or how they will be ran. So it's like maybe they don't want to say that there is without having the schedule in place. That's my hope.
That's a lot of the hope is ultimately, and you understand that they don't want to sort of speak out of turn or say something that might be wrong later, and the best course of that action is to not say anything. That way you don't get anything wrong. I get it. And some have noted that for Magic 30 past times as staff and they run in the tournaments that have been scheduled. From what they understand, ReedPOP is running Magic 30 when it comes to scheduling of events and registrations and the general overview of the weekend. Well, that's cool. They're not really on social media that much anymore. Their Twitter account hasn't been used in like 2 years or something, and like a lot of people can't sort of get a response in that manner. And so, we'll see. This is also, as we've noted and we talked about, this is one of the biggest Magic events ever, like, in the world. So, like, I can also see them being safe and sorry, saying, like, we're going to run X events, X way, in these chairs and tables, and that's how it's going to go, and we'll see what goes on from there. Like, for example, a cosplay contest. Who does anybody want to take this one? Would you rather me just go?
Yeah, just go.
All right. Well, they're calling all cosplayers, all right, for a cosplay contest at Magic 30. You put down your hot glue guns, you take a short break from sewing, because they got all they need to know as they announce judges and stuff. And they're like, we got people and we got stuff, and you got to fill out the stuff so you can be part of the show, and you got to apply to participate in the contest. And here's the stars who are being the judges, and then the cosplay prizes. Well, other games often award cash, sometimes trips and cash, sometimes trips and or hotels and or event entries of things and stuff. For the Magic 30 cosplay contest prizes, as of this recording, there is one Best in Show award of a $200 Joanne fabric gift card, 2 3-day badges to an upcoming event, and 1 hotel room to be used at the upcoming event. That's first place. The 3 judges' awards for Novice, Journeyman, and Masters categories get a $100 Joanne fabric gift card, with additional pricing and categories to be determined at a later date by sponsor. That last third option needs to be invoked now, like right this second. This is weird and just odd and awkward, honest to God, embarrassing, and that, League of Legends and the Blizzards of the world are giving $4,000 or $5,000 to the people who are winning, or $4,000 or $5,000 worth of stuff. Wizards needs to pile on some ridiculous prize for this. Give them a pack of Legends and a case of Double Masters 2020. Like, you have Magic cards. Give them lots of expensive and hard to find. Give them every secret lair that's been released in the past year. Like, do you have any idea, like, the reins that they can pull to have a low-cost, high-valuation prize that can go to this person and or these people? This Joanne Fabric thing was freaking embarrassing. So embarrassing, in fact. We've had multiple people in the community, including Dynamo Nestico and Christine Sprankle, who are going to give their own prizes out of their own pockets. Christine Sprankle, $1,000 cash, $1,000 to Best in Show, and Dynamo Nestico giving a $500 gift card to his card shop in order, to these people who are busting their butt. These costumes cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, take God knows how many hours to put together. How much did it cost to travel there and stay there and go to Magic 30? And here's your Joanne gift card. Like,
it's a little embarrassing.
We got to do better.
That's pretty embarrassing. So costume contests at large cons tend to have a cash prize around $1,000 plus another $1,000 to $2,000 for tickets to the next con, hotel stay, some commemorative crap, stuff like that. This is going to be smaller than Dragon Con or Comic-Con or something like that, so $1,000, $1,500 in prizes is about right, I think. And that's what you're getting here. I think there's a couple other missteps. First of all, the fact that Christine Sprankle wasn't one of the judges chosen is wild to me. The progenitor of Magic the Gathering cosplay, like Magic cosplay, kind of exists in its current form. Not even kind of exists in its current form thanks to Christine Sprankle. Like,
Wizards has drawn a line around OnlyFans and will not cross that line at this point.
Which is, I hate it. It's stupid, but whatever. So, but they've got some big names as judges. Like Anna Prosser is a big name in gaming. She hosts a lot of stuff. Holly Conrad is a big name in cosplay. Like, this is they put a lot of energy behind the contest and then drop the ball right at the end. And it's not even a ball that makes sense. Like, $1,000 to Wizards of the Coast, and for a tournament organizer, it's $1,000. Like, what are we doing? Like, I would have felt embarrassed typing up this prize support for this website.
Yeah.
So my guess is what's happening is that Pastimes is given a budget for prize support for various things, and they're being told, do what you can with this. And it does say will be announced at a later date. So it doesn't say may be announced at their discretion. It does sound a little bit more definite, and maybe that's me being an optimistic, which is weird because I almost never am. But like, I feel like this is just what Pastimes has, and they weren't given the full budget. And I'm hoping Wizards has plans that will be announced later. And those things, like, we get spoilers. A week and a half before the release. So it doesn't surprise me that Wizards is not showing us all the cards before the month of the event.
Right. And now, so I guess one of the big lessons that can come away from this is this: like, if they have plans to add more stuff to this, awesome, they better. But in the future, if if the first stage of your prize announcement is this low, don't announce it. You'll announce the prizes later when you have all the accoutrements and all the extra stuff that the sponsors provided on top of whatever the organizers provided on top of whatever, so and so. Because without that, even if there's a promise of it, it's still nothing until it's something. You know what I mean? And that's kind of unfortunate that people just take it that way, and that's where people just been dunking.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like definitely, I'm not saying Wizards should do their announcements like this. I'm just saying that's my hope.
Right.
And real quick to answer somebody's question, no, Pastimes is not running the event. ReedPOP is hosting it for Wizards, but Pastimes is running the Magic. They will be the ones supplying like the staff and the judges for the events, actually making Magic stuff happen. So if you guys have been going to any of the PAX or DreamHacks, that has all been Pastimes. So you can expect to see the similar quality in the way that the events are run.
There you go. All right. So moving on here, we spoke a little bit already about the Warhammer creature types coming to Magic. That shouldn't be a problem. There was a question of if you earn an invite to a DreamHack regional qualifier, do you have to pay $85 to get into the DreamHack event to play?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think the general consensus is yes.
And that appears to be part of it. And that's, this is part of that weird decoupling of Wizards running or having much to do with a lot of organized play, and them sort of saying, hey, let's find organizations like a DreamHack and just kind of let them handle the regionals and the so-and-sos and the such and such. It's been weird, not gonna lie.
I feel like it should come with a badge. Your win into that tournament should, but I mean, if they're choosing not to, it's going to be wildly unpopular, but will that hurt competitive Magic? For what is left of competitive Magic, for those of us who want to compete, probably not. So I doubt that there will be any real repercussions to this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've already sort of seen weird fallout of not having judges or not having enough judges or having really terrible calls made by judges who don't have enough experience in whatever the matter was. And that's sadly our new normal, which makes me sad.
Yeah, I don't get it. I feel like that should just be Wizards should pay for that, but they also don't care about the competitive scene anymore, so.
I mean, kinda, in that they will point and they'll say, look, we're doing this arena championship and we're putting in like 100K or 200K prizes, whatever it is. It's going to be a whole bunch of money, and they're going to do the coverage thing, and that's awesome, and I'm not saying that ain't awesome. I'm saying that when the pieces don't really fit together and the glue that you used to have is not there between the different types of events, most of that glue being judges, and trying to do the Judge Academy thing while having requirements but not having requirements, it just gets messy. Last little bit for this week was Going Infinite on a interesting question posed by Mark Rosewater on Twitter that said, what would people expect to see if they returned to Lorwyn? And I thought this was a really cool thing. I think Lorwyn is well loved by almost everyone who played it back in the day. It is and was one of the most complicated limited environments of all time. That's why Johnny Magic won the Pro Tour, because it was the hardest one. And it was a great set in terms of power level and all sorts of weird, wacky stuff that it did. Now, between Lorwyn and Morningtide, yay. Between Shadowmoor and Eventide, so I was like, we need to take a U-turn. We need to go back to the Lorwyn stage. Go back to Lorwyn, go back to Silly, go back to Kithkin, go back to Whimsy. What Spice 8 Rack was calling. What was he calling? It was like Free or Knee or something. It was it's the sort of the storybook world that like England kind of lives in, where everything is just cute.
Oh, sure.
Bree. I'm trying to think of what
Yeah.
the term was. But regardless, it was really interesting. I think that's where you want to be, is to go back
Yeah.
to the silly goblins, and they're having fun. It's ridiculous. And, I really loved, I'm still making my way through it. Most of Spice 8-Rack's video on Lorwyn that I've made through has just been absolutely terrific, where he goes over why Lorwyn was loved and beloved and called back to.
Yeah. I love Lorwyn. I think that Lorwyn is my Kamigawa, Evan. Lorwyn is my hill that I'll die on. So when I saw this pop up, I was ecstatic. We already have daytime and nighttime now. So we can definitely use that in Lorwyn.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate Lorwyn because it is not humanoid centric. I think that it is that's one of its charms, but also one of its failings, is that you can't really identify with the characters in the world. This is also part of why the 5 original Lorwyn 5 Planeswalkers were so, weird and unique, is that they were the ones you were obviously supposed to identify with in this world of giants and Kithkin and fairies and, everybody else. So I also am excited, because of the experience that Kamigawa get with its renaissance, to see Lorwyn get that kind of updated treatment of not only updated storytelling, but also updated mechanics. Lorwyn was notoriously complicated, notoriously not friendly to new players, just the messiest board states, which is what you're going to get with something that is so tribal themed. So you have a lot of play on the board, a lot of combat onboard tricks and things like that. But I would like to see a number of the new changes that Wizards has made to card design and format design applied to Lorwyn. The fact that creatures are better than ever is going to work in Lorwyn's favor. Sagas are going to be great in Lorwyn. Being able to cohesively tell some of these complicated plot points, the exploration of Kolfinor's story, the Great Aurora, what happened to the Vendilion Clique. Spoiler alert, it's the saddest thing I've ever read.
It's really sad.
These stories that Lorwyn is trying to tell are a lot easier to tell now than they were before, when we didn't have sagas, and B, when there were a lot more guideposts on what you were allowed to put on Magic cards, it feels to me. So now that Wizards has sort of moved into this new era where they're willing to put pretty much anything on a Magic card, and we have sagas and a lot more mechanical ways to tell these stories, I'm excited for Lorwyn to come back. And I think that it's pretty obvious that it will, based on this post.
I mean, yes and no. I feel like if it was some sort of foreshadowing, like that could be problematic. The only thing I wanted to add is I think Lorwyn has some of the coolest art opportunities. And I think that would be a heck of a set to do some of these cool treatments with. And I think that they can do a lot. Like, some sets are just very aesthetically pleasing. And even if they aren't, like, you can kind of tell which ones can be. Like, we saw, as soon as we saw neon samurais, we were over the moon, right? Like, I feel like Lorwyn is very much like that, where you can envision these creatures and what they can do with them. Whereas some other stuff may, Keldheim had the Norse stuff was pretty cool, but I don't think there wasn't as much to explore in the world of art with something that's a little bit more flat. When you were saying, all the characters are humanoid, sorry, dry spot. And the creatures were very straightforward. Whereas in Lorwyn, there's so much crazy stuff happening. You can do a lot.
Yeah.
I think part of it is that Lorwyn is not necessarily seen as a failure. Kamigawa was a failure. Like, it did not work.
This is true.
It was not a success. It did not like go in anywhere. Like, Lorwyn didn't like set the world on fire, but it didn't suck, right? And it wasn't like this was one of the low points of Magic. I think it's way easier. I mean, worlds easier to take something that was regarded as a failure and redo it versus something that was beloved and still in the hearts and minds and somehow make it better, because Lord knows they've tried so hard with Ravnica, so hard with Innistrad, and it's like, we already love those places. We love those characters and that stuff. That's cool. Let's go back to the old Grothas of the world and Fallen Empires, and let's go fix some of that stuff, because you can really jazz it up, right? Because jazzing up Lorwyn's going to be a hell of a lot harder than jazzing up something else that failed.
Right. I think that we are going to get a example of a set that was looked at as kind of a failure that we are getting to revisit, that was also tribal themed. And that's going to be our revisit to Ixalan.
That's right.
So if we look at Ixalan and we see how that goes, I think that's going to tell us a lot about how a revisit to Lorwyn goes. I mean, we've gone back to Innistrad, we've gone back to Zendikar, we've gone back to Ravnica. There's no reason why we can't go back to these places. And
we will.
So,
I'm just saying that, I think it's far easier to get people really excited and change minds, right?
Sure.
Versus,
I want to go back to Mercadia.
Yeah, let's go.
I know that one's not popular.
That
one's not that one's a hot take.
Mercadia. I think that's great, because they could make it interesting, and they literally made it suck. They said they made it suck, like just like Kamigawa. Like they powered it down because things were going nuts. It's fine. All right, that said, let's go ahead and turn the corner now to the finisher.
I just want to say that this joke is... I've really enjoyed writing this joke, and I'm excited for you guys to read your punchlines about it.
I haven't the slightest idea what it is. I never know. The biggest controversy in the history of the world's most popular board game has been unfolding over the past few weeks. Chess grandmaster, reigning champion, and undeniable GOAT of the sport, Magnus Carlsen, was beaten by relatively unknown American pro Hans Niemann, which led to a cavalcade of fallout, including allegations of cheating, Carlsen dropping from more than one event, odd and awkward behavior from Niemann and others, and most distressingly, more discussion of how certain sphincter contractions might be used to aid in cheating, more than I ever expected. So, fellow gamers, tell me, if you thought your opponent was using such non-traditional, quote, under the table, unquote, methods of cheating, how would you react, Ruben?
Well, I've seen lots of Magic cheats in my day, but I've not heard of anyone resorting to this sort of physical manifestation. So I think I would simply call my opponent exactly what they are, an anal retentive asshole.
Whoa, nerd girl?
All right, well, Magic players are frugal and thrifty, to say the least. So if I thought my opponent was leaning on any type of technology to aid cheating, I'd assume faulty wiring and simply pour my drink on them like a bad date and short circuit their plans.
Yeah. I love a good cheating scandal. It drives the numbers. And if that scandal can be salacious and lurid, all the better. So if I were somehow at a Magic event and expected my opponent of the butt cheats, I'd let it slide, assuming, of course, they properly lubed. Jesus Christ, Ruben! And that ends...
It's a good joke.
It's a fine joke. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic.
We just got rated by 600 people.
Of course we did.
Right at the end of our show.
Right at the end of our show. Everybody, thanks for being here at the very, very end. We are a Magic news show that is rarely on during these hours, but are normally on every Thursday. Thanks much for Jim Davis for sending those people over. But that said, I do want to thank my co-host, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you next week.
Yeah, it's almost 1 a.m. over there. Thank you, Ruben.
Yeah, I'm going to find somebody to raid and send all of you along to. I'm sorry that you showed up right at the end here. We usually are a news show, but you've shown up right when we've closed up shop. Just in time for our joke that I wrote.
for our joke. I do want, hey, while we have people here, I do want to note we are sponsored by cardhoarder.com, which I should have mentioned earlier, as your our ability to get offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online, as well as check out our altar sleeves at altarsleeves.com/magicmics. Use the code magicmics at checkout for 5% off anything in that store. Those are the plugs. You guys are wonderful and awesome, and we appreciate you.
We did a joke about the plugs.
And we did a joke about the plugs. You are free to run that back. It'll be on YouTube and or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us there. So again, thank you, Nerd Girl.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
Have a good night.
We're going to move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com, and Altar Sleeves, as well as my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.